after the shir. I could attest to the wonderful service. Okay, so let's begin. So picking up today's daf is Kuf Chav Ches 128. We are picking up Kuf Chav Zayin 127b. Let's pick up with the last two lines. Shalach le Rav Abba le Rav Yosef Bar Chama. So Rav Abba sent Rav Yosef Bar Chama the following situation. Homer lechavera, a person says to his friend, Avdi ganafta, you have stolen my servant. So we'll say, so Reuven goes over to Shimon, and Reuven says to Shimon, you've stolen my servant, stolen my Eved. And what happens? Shimon says, what is the matter? I didn't see your servant. So Reuven says, well, if that's the case, mativo etzlecha. So what is my servant doing in your house if you didn't steal him? So atamachartali, to which Shimon says, what do you mean? Or top of kuf chav ches, atona satli b'matana, or you gave it to me as a gift. Ritzoncha hashbeh v'tol. So Shimon says to Reuven, listen, if you're so convinced that this Eved is yours, so why don't you swear, take an oath, and take him back? Take an oath and take him back. So what happens? And then Reuven called off. He said, in this case, see, narrative is that Shimon was making a very exaggerated statement because he was pretty sure that Reuven wasn't going to do it. But Shimon goes, fine, Reuven, if you think it's your servant, why don't you go ahead and take a shvuah and take the servant back? And calls the bluff, and Reuven takes the servant back. So what's the halacha? Yachol lach servo. So it's at that point in time, so Shimon does not have the ability to say, oh, I was just joking. Okay? I did, even though you took the shvuah, I was not really planning on going and giving you back the Eved. Take a look at the Rashban. The Rashban says, Eino Yachol, Zeh hamachzik lach sorbo, v'lomer mashat tayisi b'cha. So we'll say in this case, Shimon, who was the one who was currently holding the Eved, can't go ahead and say to Reuven, oh, I was just kidding with you. I was just kidding. That I didn't really mean that I was going to give you the Eved if you were to go ahead and take an oath. Shari pater hayisi, v'gam lo nischayavti lishvua, kedei lishava v'litol, de'ein adam nishpa v'nota, v'lo eknisi l'cha b'kinyan, v'aseis l'cha Eved, and tishpa lav ela, just reading the Rashbam, kevan da'al piv nishpa, u'bitzavaso, sarich l'seis lo ha'eved. So we'll say, but since at the end of the day, Reuven took the oath because of Shimon, therefore, once Reuven takes the oath, Reuven has the ability to go ahead and take the Eved back. The Cheben the hital of Shvua ha'imani b'Shvua ukiman da'odile shu abdu shal zehan nishma. So we'll say this is actually amazing. So once Shimon goes in and says to Reuven, swear, then we'll say essentially what Shimon is saying is, if you in fact do swear that it's your Eved, I yield to your claim that the Eved is yours. Therefore, once Reuven goes ahead and takes the shvuah, Shimon does not have the ability to backpedal. So Gemara says, "My kamashul antanino." So I don't. It says, "What's the chiddush over here?" We learned this once before. Now we'll say, now what's the message here? The message here is that if you go ahead and you tell someone else you are believed to me through a shvuah, then once that person takes that shvuah, by definition, the other party doesn't have the ability to retract. So the Gemara says, kind of learned this already once before. So the Gemara says, Amarlo ne'eman alai abba, ne'eman alai avicha. So let's say a person says, normally a person's father is not permitted to serve as a judge, as a dayan. Let's say a person says, my father is believed upon me. In other words, I'm happy to allow my father to serve as a dayan in my case. They will say, so halach l'maaseh doesn't work. The Gemara is trying to make a point over here. Or ne'eman alai avicha. Or for that matter, in this case, is a bit better. I go ahead and I agree, or your father is believed to serve as a dayan for me. Or ne'emanin alai shlosha roi bakar. Or for that matter, again, I identify again three shepherds, little shepherds of cattle. The Rashbam says, what's roi bakar? She'inan biki and bedin. These were ultimately considered to be people who weren't generally very well educated, weren't very well versed in halacha. So again, if I say I believe all of these people to go ahead and serve as dayanim, to serve as judges for me, so Rabbi Meir Omer, Yachol lach serbo. Rabbi Meir says that even though I made this statement, I have the ability to renege and to retract. Why? Now, if you look at the Rashbam says Yachol lach serbo, Dvarim ba'alma below kinyan hu dekamalei. That ultimately, these are just words. These are just words. And because there was no Kabbalah's kinyan, because there was no kinyan to bolster these words, therefore I have the ability to go ahead and reverse the words. The Chachamim say, Eino yachol lach serbo. The Chachamim say, no, once you make the statement, you do not have the ability to retract. So the Gemara says, how come? So take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Chachamim Omrim, in Yochel Achzerbo, V'adin Lagabi Shvuas Hatovea, Shenishpa Ala Eved V'Notel, De Betarvayu Afa Gavdalo Havi Dina Hachi, Kevan the Kibel Alav in Yochel Achzerbo. So also the Chachamim say that once you accept something upon yourself, once you makabel something upon yourself, then halacha l'maisa, again, you can't retract. So the Chacham will say the same way. If I say that these three roe bakar, these three shepherds are fit to serve as dayanim for me. So again, I can't go ahead and reverse that stance. So too, again, if Reuven says to Shimon, I should say if Shimon says to Reuven, fine, take a shvua, and if it's your eved, I'll give you back the eved. Once Shimon accepts the idea that Reuven's shvua will attest to his ownership of the eved, so Shimon no longer has the ability to renege on that. So the Rebbe says, so the Gemara is saying over here is, we learned this concept. In other words, the Gemara is introducing this as like a new novel idea, that once Shimon accepts the shvua of Reuven regarding the eved, Shimon can't renege on that. The Gemara is just suggesting, we already learned this before. I mean, the Chacham already taught me this. Once I go ahead and I say that these three roe bakar could serve as my dayanim, I can't reverse that position. So why the need to restate the same concept twice? To which the Gemara says, Hakamash malan de be'etin lecha machlokes va'alocha kedivrei chachamim. So I'll say, to which the Gemara answers that the case that the Gemara brought down, the Gemara says something a little bit different. Since in this case over here, the Eved, you have one party actually agreeing to yield something, to cede something to another based on an acceptance of what the other person is going to do, that is a greater novelty. In other words, we'll say, in the Chacham's case, what is the person ultimately agreeing to? I'm agreeing to the three roe bakar to be my dayanim. Based on my acceptance of that, I'm not yielding anything. The chiddush over here, Abosai, is that once I go ahead and once Shimon accepts Reuven's ability to take a shvua, to attest his ownership of the Eved, Shimon is willing to yield that right to the Eved. So the notion that through a verbal commitment, I am ready to yield my ownership over something, that's the chiddush that the Gemara is trying to convey. The Gemara tells us that is still a machlokas, and the Chacham will apply, the Chachamim's psak halacha will apply in that case as well. And therefore, once Shimon agrees to accept the shvua of Reuven, and Reuven in fact takes that shvua, Shimon must yield or cede the Eved back to Reuven, and Shimon can't say, I was just kidding with you. I didn't really mean it. I'm not giving up the Eved because of the shvua. Fine, says the Gemara. But say, if you take a look at the last couple of lines, it's a divrei hamas in the chum or ino yochol lachzerbo. It's like in the wide lines, it was about 3 lines in. Aval be'etem lecha divrei hakol yochol lachzerbo. Hilchach itzrich Rabbi Abba shmoinon de be'etem lecha pligi. Valacha kedivrei chachamim afal gav de mistaber time Rabbi Meir. So I say the havamina is that I would have thought that when someone stands to lose something, someone's actually going to have to give something up. So just simply a verbal commitment to a process does not become binding. Kamash Malan, that is not the case. Kamash Malan, that once Shimon, who is currently in possession of the Eved, says to Reuven, if you take a shvua and agree to swear that the Eved is yours, I will give you back the Eved. That verbal commitment is binding, and once the shvua is taken, Shimon must return the Eved to Reuven. Shalach le Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yosef bar Chama. So let's listen to this. So Rabbi Abba sent Rabbi Yosef bar Chama the following idea. Halacha, govin min ha'avadim. So I'll say Rabbi Yosef. So again, Rabbi Abba said the halacha is that we collect from avadim. Also, what is this talking about? Reuven we'll call Yaakov dies. Yaakov dies. So Yaakov leaves behind sons. Sons inherit the Yerusha, and amongst the property that Yaakov bequeaths to his sons are avadim, are servants. So what's the halacha? Yaakov also left behind creditors. The creditors could seize avadim. So what is the Gemara seem to be saying over here? The Gemara seems to be saying that an eved, now under normal circumstances, creditors only have liens against what? Real property, right? Karka. So therefore, what the Gemara seems to be saying is the following: that our avadim are like karka, right? And we know this concept of avadim hukshu lekarkos, that an eved is like karka, and therefore, again, the creditor collects from avadim. Rav Nachman says no, ein govin. Rav Nachman says no, you cannot collect from avadim. Well, say take a look at the Rashbam. So Rashbam says it's in the 4th wide line in Rav Nachman Amar ein govin. Then he the iskish lekarkos. because even though avadim are compared to karka, kedich seves nachaltem hani mili lidvar maksuvim b'torah kegon miknosim b'keseh b'shar b'chazaka v'shal lishav alein v'shein bahen ono aval le'inyan balchov kimetaltali dami. So we'll say, so on the other hand, when it says no, when we say that our avadim are like karka, we'll say that only applies on a biblical level. So meaning that you could acquire avadim the same way you acquire karka. The same way there's no overcharging by karka, there's no overcharging by avadim. However, again, when it comes ultimately to the collection of debt, so ultimately again, avadim are considered to be like metal, the movable property. The balchov somich ela al karkos shen yicholim le'abed v'lo lozuz min koman aval avadim lo samcha daita hilchach lo mishtabir. Boss is an incredible yisod. What the Mechaber is saying is the following. The Mechaber is saying that, do you know why there's a lien against real property when it comes to a debt? Because if you're a creditor, Rabosai, the one thing you want more than anything is to make sure your debt is secure. So what's the one and only thing that could really secure debt is land. Why? Because it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Rabosai, even though land could be destroyed or land could depreciate, but Lamaisa, again, it's immovable. It is there. Therefore, again, the Gemara Rav Nachman says it doesn't make sense to say that a lien would devolve upon avadim, because in Eved, even though it's compared to karka in many respects, it's like metaltal. And why? It moves all over the place. In other words, it goes wherever it's going to go, wherever it wants to go. So the Ma'aseh, therefore, Nachman says that there's no lien against avadim. Therefore, when the debtor dies, when the borrower dies, the lien does not. The creditor cannot collect from avadim. Halacha, by the way, is just. We're going to go through like a rapid fire, just a number of different halachas. That's halacha. So halakha is number one. And we'll say you're going to see in these cases. Well, we'll see what we pass in this case. You have the pasuk of Nachman that ultimately, again, a creditor cannot collect from avodim in an estate. Next, shalach li Rabbi Abba Rav Yosef bar Chama halacha shlishi b'sheni kasher. This is another interesting halacha. So Rabbi Abba said to Rav Yosef bar Chama said the following: the halacha is that is shlishi b'sheni, which means, without going through the whole arichus, so we can look at Rashi and the Rashbam, that a person could testify about his first cousin once removed. You can testify about that's what it means sheni b'shlishi. You could testify about your first cousin once removed, even though again normally there's a din that krovim, that relatives cannot go ahead and be made on one another. Apparently, Rabbi Abba is saying that a first cousin once removed is far enough distance that you can give eidos. Rava says af berishon. Rava says even you can even give testimony regarding ultimately a great uncle. Okay, Ma bar Avashi achsher ba'ava de'aba. Ma bar Avashi said you could even go ahead and give testimony regarding your grandfather. Regarding your grandfather, but unless it says the Gemara, v'las hilchasa kemar bar Avashi. The halacha does not follow Mar bar Avashi. A grandson cannot give testimony about a grandfather about a grandson. But again, I was on a technical level. First cousin could give, I should say, someone could give testimony about first cousin once removed, and according to some, even great uncle. Now again, halacha l'maiser, whenever it comes to Yonei Eidos, we try to stay away from any level of familial relations, even if l'maiser it's a first cousin once removed or a great uncle. But on a technical level, if Eidos was given, it would work in these particular cases. Says the Gemara, Shalach le Rabbi Abba le Rabbi Yosef bar Chama. Rabbi Abba said to Rabbi Yosef bar Chama, Haya yodea lo be'edos karka, stama, v'nestama. Both said, listen to this fascinating case. Fascinating case. So it says the Gemara. Let's say Reuven knows testimony for Shimon regarding Shimon's ownership of land. In other words, there's a piece of contested land, and Reuven knows that Shimon owns the land, and Reuven knows the boundaries of that land. So we'll say, because again, there's two parts to the Eidos. Part number one is that Shimon owns the land, and part number two, which is the Iker, which is what? What are the boundaries of the parcel of land that Shimon supposedly owns? So Reuven knows the testimony, and then what happens? Reuven goes blind. So at the time, ultimately, again, that the testimony is going to be rendered, he is blind. He's blind. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? Puzzle. So ultimately, again, he is puzzled to go ahead and give that eidos. We'll say he's puzzled to give that eidos. Why? Bipashtos. He's puzzled to give that eidos because at this point in time, right now, at the time of the eidos, he cannot visually identify the boundaries of the karka. In other words, even if technically, on a technical level, he could recall it from memory and he could articulate it, because he has the inability to see it now, therefore he's pasalei. Shmuel says, kasher. No, Shmuel says he's kasher. Why? Efshar t'mechavin metzarna. So Shmuel says, no, as long as he could accurately recall from memory, based on what he saw, the actual boundaries, then Lamaisa, again, his edus should be absolutely acceptable. Aval glima lo. But even Shmuel will agree will say that if Reuven wants to testify in Shimon's back that Shimon owns a glima, Shimon owns a cloak, so to be able to, without the ability to go out and visually recognize that is Shimon's cloak, Reuven's testimony will not be believed. Look at Rashbam. Aval glima, I'll say it's 2, 4, 6, 8, about 10 lines up from the bottom. Aval glima, talis obeged ino yochol laha'id ala, acher shenaasa suma, the amida los samchinon, shabe kalisas midaton shavos. So I'll say, interestingly enough, if Reuven just gives kind of like general measurements, that's not going to be enough of a sin. Why I say? Because there are many begadim, right? There are many cloaks that have similar dimensions. Therefore, the Gemara is suggesting over here is that even according to Shmuel, who holds that if Reuven is currently blind, he can still go ahead and give eidos on the field. That's because he can identify very specific boundary markers. But on something that is more generic, his ability to identify just kind of basic identifying marks like the size will not be enough, because Lamaisa, there may be other cloaks with the same size. But Rav Shesha says, no, afilu glima. Rav Shesha says, no, even if Reuven is currently blind, he still has the ability to identify the cloak as Shimon's cloak. How so? Efshar demechavin midas arko umidas rachbo. Both say he can give specific dimensions for the length and the width. I will say this is just something so fascinating. So you have to understand something. In the days before mass production, so by definition, it was a common thing that items, even though they were similar, didn't have the exact same dimensions. So today we can mass produce something with same exact dimensions. Kind of the Gemara, somebody's making a cloak, I would say everything's being made by hand, obviously. So the mice, again, even if they're pretty similar dimensions, each cloak will still have its own specific dimensions. So it comes on Rav Sheshes, and Rav Sheshes says if Reuven, who is now blind, says, the cloak, Shimon's cloak was, 35 inches by 42 inches. I will say he's exact in the measurements. Rav Sheshes will say that is a simon. That is a simon, because at the end of the day, cloaks had very specific measurements. So I was going to say, even if they were in the same general ballpark, they weren't exact. Therefore, says Rav Sheshes, if he gives me this, I call me this rachbo, that's still a simon. Aval naskolo. But I will say when it comes. Nask, Rashbam says it's chatikas kesef ozav, a piece of silver or a piece of gold. So I will say if he's blind now, then ultimately again his edus will not be believed. His edus will not be believed for the naska. But Papa says afilu naska efshar demechavin midas mishkalosav. But Papa says no. Even when it comes to the naska, at the end of the day, if Reuven is able to go ahead and identify the specific weight, the specific measure, then enochinami, that'll be a valid sin. Meisves, where is the kasha? So we'll say, so remember again, what you have over here is a fundamental machlokas. If someone can't actually see that which they are testifying about, do they still have the ability to give bona fide aid? So we see again on both sides that it's an item specific machlokas. So says the Gemara Meisves, where is the kasha? So let's say again, Reuven knew eidos, he knew testimony for someone, for an individual. Ad shelo naaseh chasno, v'naaseh chasno. So listen to this. Reuven has particular eidos that ultimately applies to an individual. Then what ends up happening? He ends up marrying the daughter of that individual. So I'll say, so now ultimately again, he's the chassan, he's the son-in-law of the particular individual whom he knows testimony about. Obviously, I will say, as its son-in-law, he is not permitted to go ahead and give testimony about his father-in-law. He's not believed. So, or pikeach v'nischaj. We'll say, let's say someone was a fully functioning individual. They knew eidos, and then what happens? They became a deaf mute. Or piseach v'nistama. Or I will say, what happens? A person a person ultimately again had sight, knew eidos, and then became blind. Shafui vinishtata, a person was normal, then they went insane. So we'll say in all of these cases, puzzle. We'll say obviously all of these people in their new state cannot give eidos. So the son-in-law can't give eidos about his father-in-law. The cheresh, the deaf mute, can't give eidos ultimately again about what he saw during the time before he became a deaf mute. The person who's blind can't give eidos about what he had, about what he knew when he had. What happened? He was normal. Well, so listen to this case. Let's say Reuven had eidos regarding a particular individual, but then that individual became his father-in-law. And then what happened? Nebuch, his wife died, meaning the aide's wife died. And then what happens again? So once again, Abosai is in a state where what? The man about whom he knows eidos is no longer his father-in-law. Or pikeach ben his chaysh v'chazav ben his pakach. Or I will say what happens? The person was a pikeach, was able to hear and speak. Then he becomes a cheresh. But then once again he becomes a pikeach. Or pisach ben his stama v'chazav ben his patach. Or I will say a person ultimately had sight. He became blind, but then his sight was restored. Or shafoi ben ishtata v'chazav ben ishtafa. Or I will say a person was normal. Then they went insane. Then they became normal again. It was like kosher. In all of these cases, I was saying, the person is once again able to give eidos when in the last state, right? He's no longer the son-in-law. He's no longer blind. He's no longer a cherish. He's no longer a shota. So it says the Marzaklau, kol shetchilaso sofo bepaslos. Well, say any person whose first stage and last stage is pasul. So also, which means again that he's in a state where ultimately again he cannot render eidos. Then his eidos is pasul. Tchilasa v'sofa bekashrus kasher. I will say, however, again, if his beginning state and his end state is kasher, then he's able to give eidos. I will say, now what's the chiddush in this? So the chiddush in this is the following, which is I might have thought that because there is an intervening state where he is pasul v'leidos, then perhaps again the eidos is no longer good. So we'll say again, think about this for just a moment. Reuven knows eidos for a particular person. We'll call him Shimon. Then he becomes Shimon's son-in-law. So we'll say at that point in time he can no longer give eidos for Shimon. But then what happens? If dies, he's no longer a son-in-law to Shimon. The havamina is that I would have thought that once he's pasul eidos, right? He's pasul eidos forever. Kamash will know that if he goes back ultimately again to his restored state, then Lamaisa again is kasha. To which the Gemara will say, Amad Beis, Kuf Chavches Amad Beis, Tiyufta dekulu tiyufta. We'll say ultimately again, now we'll say, but what do you see from here? What you see from here is that Lamaisa, the only time that eidos is accepted, I will say, is if a person is in a current state of kashrus. So, for example, if a person had sight, then became blind, it is clear from this brisa that what? That their eidos is not believed while they are in their state of blindness. Therefore, tiyufta the kulu tiyufta, look at the Rashbam, tiyufta the top Rashbam on the base, tiyufta the kulu, shmo v'rasheshes v'rapapa, the kulon hechshiru mihal le'edus karka, eis in estama, v'achal kapasel kulu edus midahadar v'tana zaklal. Kol she'etchilasa o sofo bepaslos pasol, v'amiresha shamas minadim sofo bepaslos pasol, v'lamu l'mehadar mitzvah zaklal ilav la'asei kalam. So therefore, again, we see from here that halacha l'maisa, the previous opinions expressed were incorrect, and that halacha l'maisa, again, a person is only believed for eidos when they are in a current state of kashrus. But ultimately, again, if Reuven saw the field that belonged to Shimon, and now Reuven is blind, even if Reuven is able to identify that field with explicit markers, explicit boundaries, because he is presently in a state of blindness, and in that state, eidos is not kosher, so ultimately, again, his eidos will not be accepted. Okay, Shalach le'el ve'al Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Ha'omer al tinok ben habanim ne'aman. Also, listen to this case. Person says, son amongst his sons. Now we're going to define what exactly this means. But a person says about his son amongst his sons, ne'aman, he is believed. Rabbi Yochanan Amar ino ne'aman. Rabbi Yochanan says he's not believed. So person says, what are you talking about? What do you mean, ha'omer al tinok ben abanim? What is the case that we are referring to? My kamar, Amra Bais, is Haki kamar. This is what I mean to say. Ha'omer al tinok ben habanim, Yoresh kol mechasai, ne'eman Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. I will say what it means is the following. Is that if a person says about his sons, we've actually spoken about this a number of times already, that if a person says amongst his sons, Yaakov has 4 sons, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. And what happens? Yaakov says, I only want Shimon to inherit. I only want Shimon to inherit. So we'll say, what's the halacha? We saw that Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka is of the opinion that a man could assign his entire estate to one of his sons. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka says that as long as the person you are assigning the entire estate to is a person who is in the proper line of inheritance succession, as long as that person is in the proper order, then again, you're permitted to go ahead and assign to them your entire estate. So because ultimately, again, Shimon is a son of Yaakov, therefore, again, so Shimon has the ability to inherit. Thank you. Shimon has the ability to inherit the entire estate. So says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Eino ne'eman kirabanan." Rabbi Yochanan says, no, he is not believed. Right, the father does not have the ability to do that, and that's in accordance with the view of the Rabbanan. But take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Ne'eman, it's almost right across in the Rashbam. Rabbi Yehuda, va'afa gav de muchzak lan ba'achar shu b'char. Now the novelty in Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka's case is what? Even though Yaakov has a Bechar by the name of Reuven, nevertheless, afilu hachi av ne'eman. A father is believed, I will say, to go ahead, or when we see believe, a father is vested with the ability to convey his entire estate to one of his sons, even though I will say again, de facto, what is he doing? He is taking away the Bechar's Pishnayim, right? He's taking away all of the other sons' right as well. That's not called Masna Masha Kasu. But again, I will say, we're going to delve into this Shita more. But Lamais, again, he is believed and permitted to go ahead and do this. On the flip side, let's take a look at the next Rashbam. So he says, Eino ne'eman kirabanan, hoil umuchsak lan ba'asa shu b'char. We'll say, on the other hand, the Rabbanon will say, no, ultimately, again, a father is not believed to do this. But I will say, so this is the fundamental machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka and the Rabbanon. Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka ultimately says that a father has the ability to go ahead and transfer the entire estate to one of his sons. And again, I will say, the Gemara is aligning the shitos of right, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. I'm sorry. Let's see. Right. So this is Rabbi Abba says to Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. Rabbi Yochanan says, so listen to this. So the Gemara is suggesting over here that Rabbi Abba ultimately holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, who says that Lamaisa father could assign the entire estate to one of his sons. This is a little confusing. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. Rabbi Yochanan holds like the Rabbanan that a father does not have the ability to move the estate to one of the sons, thereby depriving the Bechar and the other sons of their rightful portion. So Maskif la Rava. So Rava brings his akasha. Hi Naaman, Veno Naaman. So the Gemara says, Yirash velo Yirash Nibalei. So we'll say, remember again, what the Gemara is suggesting is the following. Rav Abba bar Yosef sent Rav Yosef bar Chama the following idea. Ha'omer al tinok ben habanim Naama. That was a statement he sent. If someone says about a son amongst the sons, he is Naaman. The way the Gemara is understanding that statement is that statement reflects the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, namely that what? That a father could assign his entire estate to one of the sons, whoever those sons may be. On the flip side, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with that. Rabbi Yochanan will lie to Rabbanan that you can't do that. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, if that's what Rabbi Abba was really saying to Rabbi Yosef, then why does he use the lashon of Ne'eman or lo Ne'eman? It's not a question of Ne'emanos. Rather, what should it say? Yaresh v'lo yaresh. Ultimately, again, it should say that if a father goes ahead and identifies one of his sons amongst his sons, Yaresh. Ultimately, again, he could identify that son as the exclusive inheritor of the estate. Rather, Rava said, Hachikar, this is what it means to say. Ha'omer al tinok ben habanim becharhu Ne'eman. Rabbi Yehuda. So to say ultimately again, if a father says about one of his sons that this son is my Bechar. Father's making a statement. So in yesterday's daf as well, father makes a statement that this son is a Bechar, Ne'eman. The father is believed. Rabbi Yehuda, and I will say that is in line with the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda ben Baruch in general says that a father has the ability to control the flow of his estate to his sons. So the same way that a father could go ahead and what? Say that all of my property is going to one of my sons, so to a father has the ability to say, this son is the Bechar. On the other hand, Rabbi Yochanan says, no, a father is not Ne'eman. Father is not Ne'eman. I will say, what does mean a father is not Ne'eman? Then I will say, if another son has the chazakah of being the Bechar, a father does not have the ability to change that chazakah with a declarative statement that, no, this son is the Bechar. Where does Rabbi Yochanan get that? Ultimately, like the Rabbanon, who says that a father does not have the ability to shift the entire estate ultimately to one of his sons. Good. So just you should know, the way we paskin is that a father is vested with the ability to say, this son is the Bechar. A father ultimately does have that monos to be able to identify as the Bechar. Fine. Shalach li Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yosef bar Chama. Haomer titol ishti ke'echad min abanim. Now tell us ke'echad min abanim. We'll say if a man says, I want my wife to share in my estate like one of my sons. Like one of my sons. We'll say, take a look at the Rashbam. From before it gets wide. So Omer titol ishti ke'echad min abanim. V'kibla shenisras kidla kamama berkin. Inami lebar miksuvasa nasal chelip in the chasav ubishchimira ma'iri didar kiksuvichim surim inami bebari aidekim. So we'll say what happens. The Shah says either this is taking place with a man on his deathbed, or she's Makabal Kenyan, and he says, I want my wife to share in the. I want to give my wife a share in the estate, just like one of my sons. In other words, I want her to be a part of this estate division. So says the Gemara. Ultimately, again, it works. It works. A man can make such a stipulation like that. Rava says, I will say, and there's one caveat with this. The one caveat with this, I will say, is that her chelek is determined in accordance with the value of the property at the time the declaration was made. We'll say, now what does that mean? Take a look at the Rashbam. It's going to be this quickly. Supposed to listen to this. If the estate were to appreciate, the wife would not share in the appreciation. So when a man conveys to his wife a chilik in his estate, that chilik is established as of the value of the estate of now. So her portion is locked in. Now, what about depreciation? So the pashtas again, her portion will be depreciated, meaning if the estate goes down in value or an amount for that matter, but she does not share in the appreciation of the estate. However, I will say one thing that can change, I will say, is the following. Let's say again, between the time that he had made this declaration and the time that he dies, he has more sons. So I will say her share is diminished. In other words, I will say the number of sons who receive Yerusha are determined by the number of sons who are alive at the time of the death of the father. The father said, for example, say if a man conveys to his wife a share in his estate, so the mice again, and he has more sons between the time of the statement and the time of his death, so her share is diminished. Someone says the bottom line, husband has the ability to convey a share in his estate to his wife that she should inherit a share alongside the sons. Her portion or the value of her portion is locked in at the time of the declaration, so she doesn't share in appreciation. But if there are more sons who are born subsequently, her share is diminished amongst those sons. Says the Gemara. So we'll say, so what happens if a man goes ahead and produces? So we'll say Reuven goes ahead and produces a document that says that Shimon owes him money. Hey, Shimon owes him $1,000. What happens? So Amosi Sharcha V'Chavero Malva Omer Lo Nifrati Klum. So the lender says, you didn't pay me anything. The Lova Omer Parati Mechza. The Lova says, the borrower says, I paid you back $500. Va'idim Ne'idim Shepara Kulo. And we'll say, this is a very interesting case. The witness is claiming that what? Shimon paid off the entire debt. So we'll say, you hear this distinction? So Reuven, the lender, says, you paid me nothing. Shimon, the lender, says, Shimon, the borrower says, I paid you $500. And the witnesses say that what? we saw that Shimon paid Reuven the entire amount. In this case, we'll say ultimately again, so nishpa. So if you look at the Rashbam says nishpa, he says halova shepara. So ultimately again, the borrower swears, because both say this essentially becomes like a case of motive and mikzas, partial admission. So the lova will go ahead and swear, the borrower swears that he paid back half, and ultimately again, the borrower, is that he paid back the half that he claims to have paid. The lender has the ability to collect the other 500 only from unencumbered property. So we'll say, watch, let's play this out. Reuven lent $1,000 to Shimon. So let's see, he lent it to him on the 1st of Iyar. And then what happens? The loan was due on the 1st of Sivan. Subsequent to the loan, what happens? Shimon sells off property. We'll say now what happens? Comes the 1st of Sivan. So Reuven the lender shows up. Reuven the lender says, Shimon the borrower says, I only owe you 500. I paid you back 500. Eidim say, Shimon paid you back the entire amount. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? The halacha, it says the Gemara, Shimon swears that he paid back 500. So, and now what happens? Reuven is entitled to collect the other 500. But he's only entitled to collect 500 from unencumbered properties. In other words, we'll say any properties that Shimon sold between the 1st of Iyar and the 1st of Sivan, Reuven cannot collect from those properties. I will say, now normally when you loan someone money, so all of the properties are encumbered. Yet here they're not encumbered. Why? Because I will say, the buyers, the purchasers of the property could all say, we're not giving you anything because we are being somech on the Eidim. The Eidim say that what Rabbi saying, no debt, right? The Eidim say that at the end of the day, we paid, right, that the borrower paid you in full, and therefore, again, lemaisa, we are not ceding any of the property. An incredible case. So, even Rabbi Akiva who says, in the case of Meshav Aveda. Now, if you take a look at the Rashbam, you see the Rashbam, it's Divrei HaMaschil Mishpah. In that Rashbam, if you go down a few lines, there's 2 dots there in the Rashbam. Plugtud Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Betchila Shnaim Ochsim. So it says, Machlokes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan in the beginning of Shnaim Ochsim. It says what? Shtar Shekasuv Bo, Sloin Odinarim, Malva Omer Chamesh, Velova Omer Shalosh, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Hoil V'Hoda Miksa Satayna Yishava, Rabbi Akiva Omer, Eino Ela Kimeshev Aveda Upater Mishvod, Disloin, Lo Mashvatei. Now watch this. Rashbam. He says, "Mishnayim v'tasanu v'lotavas." The Bala Shtar Ataton. Rabbi Shishi Shoda Ma'ashaveda Utan Votzim Sia Lo Yishavam Taking. So let's listen to this. Rabbi Akiva, who holds that whenever the person who is, we'll call him the nitva, the person who's being claimed against, it admits to more than he's technically liable to admit to, than he has to admit to, that's considered to be like Meshav Aveda. That's considered to be like returning a lost object. Even Rabbi Akiva says, Meshav Aveda. Hani mili heicha de leka edim, aval heicha de ika edim irsuse irsus. So we'll say, here's what's amazing. So I would have said like this, that in this case, the truth is that the should not take a shvua in this case. Why? Because I will say, this lova has witnesses that are claiming that what? In this case over here, what are the witnesses claiming? Okay. That Shimon paid back everything. Shimon owes nothing. If that's the case, when Shimon goes ahead and admits that he owes what, Rabbi say? That he owes 500. So Rabbi Akiva's mara, that's called Meshav Aveda. That's like returning a lost object. In other words, he doesn't have to admit to anything because he has witnesses that bolster the fact that he repaid the entire amount. So I would have said that he shouldn't have to take a shvua regarding anything. To which the Gemara says, no, this case is different, Rabbi say, because over here in this case, when the witness show up in Beis Din, we'll say one thing is very interesting, which is no one knows what the witness claim. In other words, we'll say the lender and the borrower first make defective claims, and then the witnesses make their claim. At that point in time, the witness has absolutely no idea, not the witness, the borrower has no idea what the witnesses are going to claim, and therefore we'll say we don't view his partial admission as a Meshiv Aveda, and therefore he has to take a Shavua. Maskef Amar Barabashi Adraba. I feel that Shimon Elazar Daramodim makes us a taina. Hani mili heicha daleka edim to come a silent. We'll say 1 second. Says Mar Ravashi. I would say just the opposite. It was just basically we'll finish this up. Even according to Shimon Elazar, who says that when you do a partial admission, Modim makes us a taina. Hani mili heicha daleka edim. That's the when there are no witnesses. The Kamaselah who help him. Aval hecha de ika itim the kamisai vade meshav avedavi. Rabbi said when there are witnesses that ultimately support the claim of the borrower, then all the most Rabbi said is considered to be a meshav aveda. He's considered to be someone who ultimately is returning a lost object. So in other words, there should be no liability for a shvua in this case. To which the Gemara says, therefore, again, there should certainly be no liability for a shvua in this particular case. Rabbi said at the end of the day, the we were passing in this case is indeed how the Gemara laid it out. In other words, Rabbi said in this case, the lovad, the borrower, is still considered to be moed miktas. He's still considered to have made a partial admission. He admitted 500, and he would have to take a shvua ultimately again on the remaining 500. All right, so we'll have to stop over here. We'll pick up here Meretz Hashem. Yeah, okay. Well, the Gemara ends off with the conclusion, but we'll pick up with that conclusion in Meretz Hashem.